What's going on with Mihawk? He was the first warlord introduced to us and showed just a glimpse of the level our main characters would have to reach to achieve their dreams. So what has everything he's done meant for his character and the story, and where's he gonna go in the future? Let's explore that. So Mihawk, like most other great pirates from his generation, personally attended and was inspired by the execution of Goldie Roger and his announcement of his ultimate treasure being out there for someone to find. Now this is a really interesting point for us to talk about since we don't actually know what Mihawk's mindset was at this point. We know where he ended up, being a loner, only interested in living on his own terms and being the greatest swordsman, and we'll talk about that later, but there was over like 20 years of growth that could have happened here that we don't know about yet. Was Mihawk like, say, Crocodile, who was heavily inspired by Roger's final words and set out to sea with the goal of finding the One Piece, or was he always only focused on swordsmanship? It's an interesting question. I personally think it was somewhere in the middle. Mihawk was inspired by Roger to go out to sea, but I think it was to really discover what he wanted, and in the end he decided being a pirate, or at least having that reputation, would allow him to fight the best out there to sharpen his swordsmanship. And of course there was one man that stood out above all of his other competition. Shanks is the only person we know of that actually had a rivalry with Mihawk, which tells me no matter how strong all the other swordsmen were, their legacies and memories were lost to time because Mihawk was just so far above them. I mean, we don't even know the guy he had to beat to become the greatest swordsman. It's established that Zoro has to beat him to get the title, so it stands to reason that Mihawk had to beat the previous strongest swordsman. But unless it's revealed who that was in the future, we can assume Mihawk smoked him so bad he's not even worth talking about anymore, which is crazy. And this of course proves how great Shanks is too. And something else interesting to note is he didn't get any noticeable injuries from Mihawk, something that even rivals like Akainu and Aokiji couldn't avoid, and vice versa for Mihawk. Their rivalry seems more akin to like a Dory and Broggy rivalry. They're friends almost as much as they are rivals. More one-sided for Shanks, I will admit. I can picture Shanks just rambling to Mihawk while he's drunk and Mihawk just sitting there as the extent of their friendship, but still, Mihawk remembered the Luffy story, so he does care at least a little bit. A lot of people debate if Mihawk's title had to do with Shanks, either that Shanks was who he beat for the title or that Mihawk defended his title against him. In my opinion, I don't see this. This title very much seems like a thing you have to strive for. Like for example, if Whitebeard beat Mihawk, I don't even think he'd care to take the title, so it would either stay with Mihawk or just become void until more people try to get it. And I think this is the case with Shanks. He doesn't strike me, from what we know currently at least, as someone who cares about the title. If anything, I think their rivalry was just for fun and Mihawk's way of just training for any actual contenders for the title, which would explain why they never seriously injured each other. Back to Aokiji and Akainu, even though Akainu was stronger, Aokiji still left scars all over his body, so if Shanks and Mihawk were really going 100% all the time, they would definitely both get injured, regardless of who you think is stronger. Out of the very little we know about this period, one thing was his title that he got around this time, Marine Hunter. And I think it's pretty much implied that him killing so many Marines was what got him the offer of becoming a warlord, so why did this man have so much beef with the Marines? I think he was either using them for easy practice or purposely hunted them down so he would get an offer like he did, therefore being able to live the quiet life he wanted. And the reason I think he wanted that quiet life was because by this point he already got the title of World's Strongest Swordsman, he accomplished what he wanted and therefore didn't need to put himself through the ringer so much to get stronger anymore. Pressure makes diamonds, and I think the reason Mihawk got so strong was just fighting all the time, any Marine he saw, any pirate, dueling Shanks a bunch, and this sharpened his skills. But after years of being fully devoted to getting stronger, he reached the top of his game and decided to just chill out. He still trains of course and wants to find someone that can challenge him, but he pretty much just transitioned from a young hungry swordsman to the final boss who can just chill at the top. Now I want to talk about Yoru. How did he get a supreme grade blade and how did he become the second person in history to permanently make it black? Now I'll give my guess for the first, but there's already a billion theories for how black blades are made and I'm fine just waiting for the answer on that one. So how did he get his hands on Yoru? Now there's two paths for this one. One, he found / got it somehow, which would be very difficult since it's a supreme grade blade, or the second option is it wasn't a supreme blade, but making it black turned it into one by upgrading it. Both these are fine. I don't think Mihawk needs a sword that was already supreme to be the strongest. I mean, look at Zoro, none of his swords are supreme grade, and you can say he'll get some later on, but no matter what, he's not giving up the Wado Ichimonji. So that's definitely getting made supreme by him making it black at some point. Either of these things could work, but it would be cooler for Mihawk to have a blade that started out supreme, like a legendary mythical sword that's been supreme for hundreds of years that Mihawk had to beat some legend to take. That would be a really cool dynamic in the Zoro-Mihawk fight. Zoro having swords that he made supreme through pure effort, and Mihawk having one that was already supreme that he made even better with his power. But anyway, now let's talk about Mihawk in the main story. So as we know, he is one of the best introductions of all time, pulling up on the Baratie after ruining Don Krieg's life just to do it some more, cutting his entire ship in half, showing the massive gap in power between him and Zoro right away. Despite this, Zoro wants to fight, and of course we get the legendary duel. Mihawk spares his life though, seeing his drive and passion, but also ideology about swordsmanship. He can respect those far weaker than him and doesn't turn his nose up at them, even though he could literally one-shot them. It all depends on their values. Like Zoro and Don Krieg, compared to how strong Mihawk was, were pretty much on the same level to him, but he treats Krieg like trash and respects Zoro. I think he wants the future of swordsmanship to thrive. He's not the type to go out there and hunt down and kill every swordsman, like go dojo to dojo and kill all the masters. Nah, he wants there to be a bright future for swordsmanship, but just wants to prove that he's the best and wants to have a worthy rival to sharpen his skills, and he rightfully sees that in Zoro. From here, he keeps a keen eye on Zoro and Luffy's careers, probably seeing it as fate that his old rival Shanks' successor is the captain of his future rival. So fast forward, Mihawk answers the call to fight the Whitebeard pirates of Marineford, and pretty much just does the bare minimum. Mihawk is the type of warlord that just does enough so he doesn't get fired, but doesn't go above and beyond. So he just does what he wants pretty much. He sends an attack at Whitebeard to see how far he really is from him, but is blocked by Jozu, so he doesn't really bother again. As I said, Mihawk's only really interested in fighting swordsmen, and although Whitebeard technically is a swordsman, one, he uses his Del Fruit as much as his sword, if not more, so not really. It's why Zoro always goes for the swordsman in most arcs. Like, could he take down a non-swordsman? Sure, but he wants to fight and win against people in his own specialty. And two, Whitebeard is 25 years past his prime, so Mihawk taking down a half swordsman that's literally dying wouldn't do much for him. It's why he doesn't duel Shanks anymore. He wants opponents at their best. He's at the top of the game now, and he won't accept anything else but the best competition. And speaking of Shanks, when he arrives at the war, that's Mihawk's cue to leave. Both for the reasons I said he doesn't want to fight Shanks for, and just as an easy excuse to leave without getting fired. He returns to his island to find his future rival Zoro. He tells him what happened to Luffy at the war and gives him a boat to leave on, but Zoro gets in some trouble with the human drills, the boat breaks, so Mihawk tells him he's welcome back to his castle cause he's a chill dude, he doesn't really care. Zoro says no, but after some time he does come to Mihawk, but this time with a request. He wants Mihawk, his future greatest rival, to train him. At first, Mihawk is disappointed, thinking his best chance for a swordsman who could match him lost to the human drills and was now desperate for a way to escape, and had come back groveling. But everything changes when Zoro says he beat the human drills. Zoro wasn't coming back to him out of weakness, but strength. He was willing to put aside his pride as a swordsman, the pride that Mihawk respected him so much for, all in order to help his captain. Mihawk knew this wasn't cause Zoro's desire to beat him was any less than it was back then, but his loyalty to Luffy was so great that he could swallow his pride. This impressed Mihawk, and he agreed to train him, laughing that he was training someone to take his head in the future, but I imagine Mihawk loved this. He actually had an excuse to get a future opponent stronger much quicker, therefore getting him the fight he desperately wants as fast as possible. So he spends the next 2 years training Zoro, not really hands-on, just telling him things he didn't know, and just letting him figure them out more or less, but this was a huge help. Just being able to hear the basics of Haki and other techniques explained by the ultimate master sped up Zoro's growth exponentially, and he left with one less eye, but many times stronger than when he arrived. We all really want to know how he lost the eye. Was it related to Mihawk? Must be, unless someone or something else was on the island at some point, cause bro definitely didn't lose it to a human drill, that would be crazy. So for a long time after this we don't see Mihawk. He's not one of these characters that's making all these moves behind the scenes though. We pretty much know bro was just chilling in his castle reading the paper the whole time, which respect man, this is one crazy world, and there being a dude who can just chill and live his best life is honestly great, but that would unfortunately all be taken away from him when the Warlord system was abolished. I would have expected him to be pissed off, like he spent all these years working for the government just for his chill life to be taken away because of other people, but he was pretty neutral about it. He got a call from Crocodile and didn't hold any grudge from him attacking him in Marineford or him being one of the 2 people that made the Warlord system get abolished in the first place, and accepted his proposal of teaming up and forming an organization together. Of course, Buggy crashed into their plans and Mihawk was fine with that at first. It took the limelight off of him, but then Buggy announced to the whole crew that they were gonna go after the One Piece. I've said before that Crocodile is probably gonna learn to be happy with this decision because finding the One Piece is still deep down his dream, but it hasn't been Mihawk's dream ever, so I don't know how he's gonna feel about it. I think the crew is gonna pretty much force him and Crocodile along for the journey, and Mihawk's gonna have to deal with that. The only other option is killing Buggy, but then the limelight would be on him tenfold, because they're not gonna view that as him getting rid of a fraud. They're gonna think Mihawk just easily beat an emperor. The world government's gonna bump his bounty up to at least Whitebeard levels, he's gonna be forced to take over the Cross Guild. It would just be a nightmare for Mihawk. Probably the worst case scenario for for him. So he's gonna suck it up, get on the ship, and just sit back and drink wine in his room or something. The interesting part comes when they actually run into another Emperor crew. I think if it's Shanks, he'll instantly see what's going on and think it's funny as hell that Mihawk's gotten into this position with Buggy. And I think if Shanks is really game to have a race to the One Piece, he'll just give Buggy the poneglyphs they have so they can have an equal shot. And of course Buggy's crew's gonna see this as Shanks bowing down to him. That'll be fun. Mihawk and Shanks will have a nice chat, maybe about Luffy and Zoro. That would be really fun to see. And speaking of them, I don't think the Cross Guild are gonna run into the Straw Hats. I think they have a better chance of running into Blackbeard, because I really think the next time Mihawk and Zoro meet, it'll be for their fight, which would be perfect, leaving each other as master and student and meeting again as equals. That would be sick. Now what I really want to see is Mihawk versus S-Hawk. This is the only fight besides Zoro that would get Mihawk really pumped up. Like I'm talking, we'll actually see real rage from this man for the first time. Now this would be the perfect way to introduce Mihawk's strength after over 20 years of waiting. S-Hawk has been hyped up and shown to be really dangerous, already clashing with Zoro and having fights with Blackbeard, and I think the Seraphims are just getting stronger by the day, so by the time him and Mihawk meet, he'll be even stronger, and Mihawk will have the chance to really assert himself. I think he'll be pissed off that the government went behind his back to do this, to replace him and cast him aside. He'll get fired up, wanting to prove that he's one of a kind and no one can make a replica that comes close to him. A lot of people have brought up the similarity between Mihawk and Emu's eyes, and if it ever comes into play that they're related in some way, I think it'll be here. S-Hawk is a clone of what Mihawk is now, but I think Mihawk will reveal a power he's never shown, that S-Hawk can't replicate, and he'll use that to finish him off, just completely outclass him with it. I really like this idea of a hidden power. It doesn't have to be a whole new transformation or something. It can just be something small that adds another dimension to Mihawk's skill set, a game changer that no one else except Emu has, that proves why he has the title he does. Maybe this power is what gained him the title in the first place, using it to beat the previous strongest swordsman. Of course, this is all speculation, and I don't mind if Oda doesn't go this way, but that's the thing. So many things can be done with Mihawk at this point, and I think every direction has the chance to be really interesting. So what I'm looking for from Mihawk is some really good character interactions. I want some kind of conclusion to his rivalry with Shanks before the story is done. Shine some light on the specifics of their rivalry back in the day. Were they actually really fighting over the title of greatest swordsman or for another reason? I want to see the last interactions between Mihawk and Zoro before their duel, Mihawk's reactions to how Zoro improved, and of course the flashback to how Zoro lost the eye. That'll probably be a key part of their fight and tie back into how Zoro can win. I want to see what connection, if any, Mihawk has to Emu. A lot of people have brought up their similarities. It's really popular right now that Mihawk might be a God's Knight for how he talked about rabbits, how that ties into the rabbit hunts the celestial dragons do. I think that theory works. As far as we know, the God's Knights are made up of the best warriors from each celestial family, Garling for the Figurelands for example. So with the eyes, Mihawk might be the strongest member of Emu's family, the Neuronas. Really interesting stuff that would add another parallel to Shanks. Garling might be Shanks' father, and maybe Mihawk's father is another member of the God's Knights. And if so, that Mihawk backstory of how he escaped will be insane. But that's thinking a bit far ahead. Regardless, after the Zoro fight, because I don't think Zoro's gonna kill Mihawk, I mean that would be a bit cold. The man spared his life and trained him when he didn't need to do either. I want to see what Mihawk does after. I think out of all the former antagonists, he'll probably be the most chill. Bro's already pretty much used to the retired life, so he can just go back to chilling, being happy with being the strongest swordsman for like 10 plus years. It would be really cool if he like opened up a dojo, but I don't think that would interest him, but who knows. Regardless, what do you think? Where does Old Dracul go from here? Let me know. And if you made it this far, you probably enjoyed the video at least a bit, so subscribe to see one or two more. And yeah, peace.